Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm going to start a little bit early tonight because we had quite a show over on Greg Flugar's show, and I just wanted to chat about that for a minute and kind of discuss what Greg was experiencing and what he was explaining was happening in the last several months with Tony Altimore. And I have decided I'm not going to say much about that individual, that one person. I don't use his name in my tweets anymore. None of that really matters to me. But Greg matters to me a lot. And so I wanted to just come on a few minutes early. We're going to have, very lucky today, we're going to have John Kurtz on the show. I feel extremely lucky that he's going to be here. Obviously, he doesn't do a ton of shows. And so having him on follows on with the great interviews we've had with Big Ten Ted and Bob Thompson recently, Jim Williams. I mean, the list just goes on. And then all the partners that we've been working with as well. My key contributors are obviously Immaculate View and Moen, who's now Moen Sports. And this gives me a couple minutes to sort of slowly ease into a show that I normally don't get to take the extra time to thank everyone for everything that's happened. I just want to go into that really quick. We're only going to be here about 10 minutes before John shows up. So let me just review a few things in the history of this show and the Holy Rivals. So when these shows kicked off, part of the reason I was doing it is because I was trying to give a voice to disenfranchised groups. Whether that's Oregon State or if it's BYU or even if it was Utah during that whole mess that was the Pac-12 realignment, there wasn't a lot in the middle. There were a lot of people that were talking on the extremes, and that's fine. That's not what I wanted to do. So I wanted to come up with something that was a lot more fair, and I think we've done that in the last 4 months. If you look at where we're at now, 4,000 followers on Twitter, 3,000 subs on YouTube. Those numbers, you don't just fall out of bed and get those numbers, and that's all because of you and all the people that have really put in their time and energy to building up my shows. I want to give a special call out to everybody who's here early tonight. They all show up a half hour even before we're supposed to go. So I'm seeing all these people lined up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go in early and recognize these people where I don't normally get to do it. I normally jump right into the stories and the interviews, and I decided not to do that tonight. So let's just start off with recognizing the people who are here early. You got Nathan Campbell, who I believe is first one in the house. Conundrum. Immaculate is here, and he'll be on the show in a little bit. BR, one of our subscribers, appreciate you being here, BR. Glenn Lumen, who's all the way here from the Philippines, and is also I see it said subscriber. I apologize. Members. Glenn Lumen is a member. BR is a member. John Coy, PS Duff, Devil Frog, who's an original Big 12 mafioso. Appreciate you being here. Let's see, Rebecca Salisbury. Thanks for being here, Becca. It's good to see you. I kind of count you as one of my key contributors. You and Sergeant Pickles have been incredible representing the Pac-12 and UW, and I really appreciate you guys being here. Let's see who else we have that's popped in. David Floyd, always been a good part of the show. Jay Go Blue, who's recent, and I know was a blue and gold dude, tip the hat person, and hopefully he's come over here because I'm trying to get some of that spirit into this show from Blue and Gold Dude. Daryl MVP 24, good to see you. Steve Ohio, Florida, who's been on the show, good to see you, Steve. Jeremy Callahan, Moen Sports, again, will be on later in the show. And then we're going to have others that are going to join. And I just want to recognize all those people that have been with us from the beginning. Another thing I want to do is I want to recognize some of the sponsors that we have. First is if you're a BYU person and you're not doing an NIL donation, at 8:30 tonight, which is 10:30 Eastern, I'm going to have Jake Brandon on the BYU Coug Connect NIL, and we're going to talk for about 20 minutes or so about what an NIL is and why it's important for BYU, especially BYU, to take donations and build up the athletic programs, specifically football and basketball. We're going to be talking about that later in the show. If you'll notice up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a QR code. Scan that QR code if you're a BYU fan. It'll take you right to the Coug Connect sign-up page. You go on there, sign up for $10, and right away, $10 a month, you'll be building the kingdom as it was. I'm going to steal that from the church a little bit, and we're going to build the kingdom up that is BYU athletics, and the way to do that is through NIL. I also want to bring up this other one, which is an amazing partner that I'm now starting to show their stuff, which is BYU football mini football helmets. And that QR code's in the upper right-hand corner. And you scan that, and it'll take you to I believe it's an Etsy page, or maybe it's now a regular web page. You can order and buy BYU football helmets. Let me give you an example of a couple. This is my favorite by far, the white with the royal electric blue. These things pop, and they'll look good on any shelf. They're good for presents for kids and adults. And I really want to appreciate everybody that goes checks those out, and just try to keep some of the money local with people that are local providers of BYU goods. And then the last thing I want to do is shout out the guys who have sent me stuff. I want to make sure I get their names right because I tend to forget. So Summit Hawk sent me this KU helmet, which is a kick-ass helmet as well. I think that's really cool. And that's going to sit there until something else replaces it. And then Brent Nichols sent me this K-State pennant, which is always also really cool. I'm going to get some other display stuff behind me to get more things on the wall. But at the end of the day, that's all that's been sent to me. I'm expecting a Oklahoma State thing to be coming in. And as soon as I get that up, I will definitely put it up on the shelf. So let me set up what's going to happen tonight with John Kurtz. First of all, please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us a comment or suggestion. If you want to be part of the Big 12 Mafia family, go to the Big 12 Mafia page on YouTube and hit the join button in the middle. If you do that, you have options to become a member. There's 3 levels. Once you're a member, all your comments I try to get to before any regular comments if they're in the comment section. And then if you don't want to be a member, you're kind of afraid of a monthly charge, you can always do a super chat. And I read every single super chat. I haven't missed one yet, and I don't plan on ever missing one. So if there's a comment or suggestion you want to get out, even right now, even without John Kurtz on, if there's something you want to talk about right this second when I've got a few minutes here, please give me a good comment and I'll bring that up, super chat or not. Let's see. Are there anything else? No, I think that's it. So when John gets here, we're going to talk about a few things. First, I want to really circle back with him. Where are we after all the comments that went for the last year? And John was one of he and let's see. He and Blue and Gold Dude and Greg Pflugar were the 3 sort of prophets out there saying, hey, it's all isn't what you're hearing from the Pac-12, and was trying to present news that was unfiltered, right? They presented the news and let you make up your mind about what it meant. And that made a huge difference to me. And I know it meant a lot to tens of thousands of people out there. Now, who's victorious, if you want to call it, in this Pac-12 mess? Is it the Big 12? Well, you could say they got the most out of it. Between the Big 12 and the Big 10, they both scored 4 great schools, and they're going to grow and thrive because of that. And the Pac-12 was mismanaged from the beginning. So to circle back with John, one of the first things I want to ask him is, where as he looks back now, the last 12 months, what has he seen change from then to now? We've talked to Bob Thompson recently, and he says the only thing that's really changed is the economy has gone down. But other than that, my valuations were right, Bob said. All of my time estimates were right, Bob said. And if you want answers to those questions, go into the archive, go into the live section on the Big 12 Mafia page on YouTube, and just find the Bob Thompson interview. It was last week, and he answers all those questions. Not only does he answer those, but he answers a bunch of others that nobody had been asking him. And I believe we might, except for John Canzano, might have the time for the longest interview he's ever given. So if you're into that content and you still want to stay up on realignment, definitely hit him up. Okay. Bob Thompson's an amazing guy. He's a good individual, and I really appreciate him being here. And more importantly, I really appreciate him being part of what we've got going on here. Now, I'm going to do this. I want to do this right. So we have a new member and I'm going to bring up that new member. The new member is Kendon Shirley. Kendon Shirley is in the house, and I feel that from so many people. Kendon Shirley, thank you so much for being here and being a member of the party, as we call it here at Big 12 Mafia, and the Holy Rivals as well. It's all one big organization, and I really appreciate you becoming a member. Depending on which membership tier you signed up for, I'll add you to the private DM group on Twitter, where I try to get stuff to you before it goes out to the general public if I have it. And then depending on the subscriber level, I'm going to be buying some merch. In fact, I was just talking to them today. I'm going to place an order hopefully in the next 3 or 4 days for some rally towels. And those are going to go to, I believe I said that for the first and maybe it was the second tier level of member. But anyway, if you're in those groups and you want to get a rally towel, a Big 12 Mafia rally towel, I'm going to be sending those out hopefully soon. I just need to get the towels in-house. Let's see here. So John's going to come, and we're going to ask him, okay, what's going on, John? Where do you think we're at? Where do you think we're going to go? We're going to talk about Stanford. Obviously, Stanford and Cal is top of mind. And I think we really, really, really need to pay attention to everybody who's saying, if everybody's saying one thing, in realignment, what I've figured out is I would kind of look to something else. So if you hear everybody saying that everybody, Tom, Dick, and Harry is saying for sure Stanford and Cal are going to get into the ACC, I would just pump the brakes on that a little bit because there's a lot of complications with those two schools joining the ACC. Could they do it? Absolutely. It's their conference. They can do whatever they want with it. But as we've been on this show talking about 4 months or more, all isn't as it seems. And I think the guy who I'm going to bring on right now knows this better than anybody, and that is John Kurtz. Welcome, John.
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing?
I am doing great.
Did you get a chance to watch any of Greg's show tonight?
I did not. I have been up to my eyeballs in the day job today, so I'm a little out of the loop today.
That's okay. You'll take the time and go back and watch it. He went into Altamore a little bit, and it's quite entertaining. So if you have the time, you can dive into that. So how are you doing today? You say you're busy. What are you working on?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got obviously my YouTube content. We've been putting a lot of elbow grease into the podcast that I do, 3MA K-State podcast on KCSN. Shout out to my guys Cole Manbeck and Derek Young there. We've been putting in a lot of work on that, trying to get everything ready to go for football season. So between that and then holding down just a regular 40-hour week corporate PR job, there's been a lot going on. So my world is pretty busy these days for sure.
So I can't remember exactly when you started your show. It was over a year ago, right? Haven't you been doing it a couple of years?
Yeah, so I've had a YouTube channel for probably like 4 or 5 years maybe.
Oh, okay.
But for a while, it was just K-State content, didn't have many followers. I spent 10 years doing a 2-hour radio show every day in Manhattan.
Right, I knew that, yeah.
So when I was doing that, I would take like what I thought was my best take of the day kind of and throw it on the YouTube channel and was kind of just doing it for more exposure, even though it wasn't really that much. And I got lucky when realignment popped, just happened to talk about it a little bit and kind of follow that trail. And so I'd say like that's the YouTube channel that you guys all know now really came into view like July 2021 was when that started, when Texas and Oklahoma left. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, right? That aligns immediately with the trouble that the Big 12 was in immediately. And realignment really drives, as you know, it drives people to different shows and different outlets to get information. All right, well, let's get past the OU and Texas stuff, and let's jump back to June of last year. So June of 22, you were doing regular stuff, and then the end of the month hits, and the world gets turned upside down with USC and UCLA. Immediately, then your audience changes. I started watching your show. I was a BYU guy. I'd never watched the K-State show before, but when you were talking realignment, that I had an affinity for that, and I think a lot of BYU fans have become fans of yours because of that. What has changed most from June 30th last year to where we are today?
Boy, that is a good question. I mean, I hate to take the low hanging fruit, but the Pac-12 has changed an awful lot in the last year, so that would certainly be one. And shout out to BYU fans, by the way. Love all of you guys. You guys have been that's been one of the coolest parts about this whole journey with the YouTube channel, is getting to meet all of you guys and see like the nicest freaking fan base I think I've ever come across in college football. So really appreciate all of you guys. Yeah, I mean, I think Big 12 Twitter, like just the whole Big 12 ecosphere has been very vindicated. Like that landscape has really changed. I think I would just say in tandem with the Pac-12's downfall, the Big 12 narrative has changed more than almost anything. And that to me has been maybe the most impressive part of all of this, because, you know, for those of us that have lived this in the Big 12, like this was not our first brush with death.
Right.
That happened. I always tell the story. Like I was an intern at Sports Radio 810 here in Kansas City, where I live, back in like 2010. And I remember like waiting outside the Intercontinental Hotel, like a boardroom in there for Tom Osborne forever when Nebraska was debating leaving. And that was like a hot story at that time. And like, I thought K-State was going to be in the Big East, and I didn't know what to expect and what was going on. And then they've just been a punching bag ever since then. And Dan Beebe, like terrible leadership. They had the debacle in 15 or 16. I think it was 15.
It was 16.
Okay,
yeah.
16, where they kind of kicked around the idea of adding some teams and didn't do it. So I've just seen the league been made fun of for so long, and then everybody was just kind of grave dancing after Texas and Oklahoma left. And to have that completely flipped on its head by Brett Yormark, with the marketing job that he's done, the aggressiveness that he's implemented, the strategy, just what they're trying to do in Mexico and Rucker Park and all these different things that everybody looks at pretty much universally and says, well, hey, actually, that seems pretty smart. Like the Big 12 seems to know what the hell they're doing at this point. That has been remarkable to me as a lifelong Big 12 fan and K-State fan. Like it's unbelievable to me that that's the position the Big 12 is in right now, because it has just never been anywhere close to that. So that's probably been the coolest part of all of this.
And the flip side of that is, what's the truly horrible part of this story outside of the Pac-12 poor leadership? What's really the core of? Is it vanity? Is it pride? Is it the old Bible story that says pride goeth before the fall? I mean, this felt to us, and we're new to the group, right? Only in the Big 12. This is 2 years, but that was from not being in the club. That was we're coming. But we knew what was happening with the Pac-12, specifically BYU fans, because we'd been really bigoted against for so long, and it's been well documented. Goes all the way back decades, into the 80s when I was in high school. There was I still have it. I need to find it in my trunk. It's a Sports Illustrated article. I think it was in 1986 that said BYU to the Pac-12, and it had a question mark on it. And to wait for 40 years and still never get that call, and then to have this happen. Everybody, says BYU fans were the ones that were leading the charge for the destruction of the Pac-12. I wouldn't say that it was active that way, but it definitely felt, like you said, the word vindicated. How do we approach the people that treated us in the Big 12 and other sort of what they felt were lower than them groups? What do we do with these people? Do we accept them now, just with complete forgiveness? Do you take a crow from Arizona State who's completely tone deaf and simply cannot get it out of his mind that he can't believe he has to condescend to join the Big 12? I mean, where does this go? How do we merge these disparate groups into a unified conference?
Yeah, there's a dichotomy, I think, to me, of how I feel about everything here, and it's a really difficult one to kind of make work at the same time, because on one hand, I do very much I don't like at all the direction that this is all going. I don't like the consolidation of the sport. I don't like a 100-plus-year-old conference breaking up here. I don't like any of that. It is clearly, we're losing a lot of the idiosyncrasies and rivalries and the things that made the sport great. So I'm not here for that. I don't love it. But at the same time, there absolutely is a victory lap that deserved to be taken by everybody that has been on this Big 12 side and was called 12 and on, called names, not just by people on Twitter, but by legit guys like, well, I guess legit is in the eye of the beholder, but guys with legitimate like journalistic backgrounds and followings, namely like the John Canzanos of the world, which was just, it was maddening. And you kept thinking this whole time, like, I mean, if you're just reading the tea leaves and listening to people like Andrew Marchand and John Oran, who have no dog in this fight, they're New York-based media reporters, like they've been saying everything that we've been saying, and it just like, what is the disconnect here? And now seeing after the Pac-12 has essentially died, like the blame game going around and people talking now, and actually you have sourced out reporters now or sourced out stories that are confirming everything Big 12 Twitter had said for a while. It's like, yeah, I want to celebrate that, because not only has it been a year-long battle here and a 2-year-long battle since Texas and Oklahoma left, but man, this has been a lifetime battle for me as a guy who's lived in Big 12 country and been a Big 12 fan for a long time. And like you guys said, for BYU, there are even deeper roots there for everything that has happened here. So I think you have to kind of take one with the other, and I think it's okay to feel very strongly on both sides of that, because I certainly do. Like, I am here to get off a couple jokes. I've tried to draw the line at like Oregon State and Washington State. I feel legitimately terrible for. I know that my school was staring the exact same fate in the face that they are looking at right now, not once but twice. And I am self-aware enough to know that. And so I have tried to really abstain from any of that. Stanford and Cal, I could care less. Stanford has got a $37 billion endowment. They will be just fine. And they, I think, have led to the demise of the Pac-12 almost as much as anybody, because they're going to be the top of the arrogant peak there in that league. And yes, arrogance did absolutely bring them down. So it's hard to feel terrible for that side of the equation. So I think there's just, it's very nuanced. Like I'm big on that. I don't think everything needs to be totally black and white. I think there's room for a lot of nuance. And I think there's definitely room for a lot of nuance in this whole discussion, where you can feel bad about the general state of the game and some of the players here in the Pac-12 and what happened to them. But at the same time, want to beat your chest a little bit, because the Big 12 for once has been in a position of relative power in one of these realignment battles. And at the same time, you feel vindication for everything that you've been saying for a really long time throughout all of this.
So we really chased down, and I must admit, in July, I was so caught up in the news that I was actually even breaking a little news, which I never thought in my life I would do. But I would get tips and I would track him down. I'd back him up with a second source, and I kind of felt like I was doing I don't know, like a little Columbo-esque investigation to get information to bring on the show, and we were doing an everyday thing, and I mean, I couldn't say for 1,000% we were sure, but a week and a half, 2 weeks before Colorado said they were going to move, we basically said Colorado is going to move. And the question is when it finally exploded and everything went away, in the next year, are we going to be okay to bring in these groups that for 12 months or more we're talking about everybody else as the others, less than, we're better than, truck stop conference, education, research? It couldn't have been a more derogatory conversation for an entire year that was out in the public sphere. And except for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I don't know of any other story that was bigger than realignment. So is a year enough time to burn away that sort of negativity?
Well, again, I think I'm going to approach this piece of it with some nuance. Like, I think I understand why you would be less than thrilled about welcoming in some of the people that were saying that. At the same time, I think we'll take this like one by one. So Arizona State clearly has the most tone-deaf leadership in all of this, and that's Michael Crow and Ray Anderson. But I'm not going to hold Arizona State fans to that, because it seems like their fan base generally is not thrilled with the leadership they have. And like,
no, they're happy to be in the Big 12.
Yeah, like, sure. I mean, how could you be happy to have the leadership that Arizona State has? I mean, Michael Crow, I understand he has some academic accomplishments. When I'm talking about purely from an athletic standpoint, they hired Herm Edwards, for God's sake, in the disaster that was. So
Ray Anderson's tone deaf too, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, the West Virginia comment was terrible. That is, I stick up for what Morgantown. You should all BYU fans should go make the trip to Morgantown. It is
I plan on it. Plan on it.
It is a very cool place to go see a game. It was eye-opening for me when I went for the first time in 2012. I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is a great, again, you talk about the stuff that makes college football great. It is a wonderful place to watch a football game, and just such a unique town. in the scope of Big 12 country. So yeah, I hated that. I don't like their leadership, but I think their fans like understand the reality of it and are fine. So like I don't really hold anything against Arizona State there. Just they have some old clunky leadership going on. Colorado, Colorado in the Big 12 days, their fans were always like, you'll hear stories about going to games and them throwing snowballs with batteries in it. I mean, they're kind of like an edgy, wilder fan base. I mean, I will tell a personal story. I was doing student radio for K-State, so we drove to do a game there, and we had a K-State like branded car. We had to take like a university vehicle, and I remember we were backing out at the end of the game, and we heard this like psh, psh. We looked, and they had stuck empty beer bottles under the tires. Thankfully, it didn't pierce it. But I mean, that was so Colorado's they're a little wild. I kind of just understand, but I think some of that's been tempered just by the lack of success that they've had since they left the league.
They haven't been able to gloat, so it's hard to do stuff like that.
Yeah, there just hasn't been much going on there for them. So like selfishly, I enjoy Boulder a lot. I'm excited for that trip to be back in the league, and the nostalgia part of me that loves the old school, the OG Big 12. Right. I am excited to have them back. Arizona, seems like they were kind of out in front of this whole thing from the beginning and saw where this was going. And so I've gained a lot of respect for Arizona there. And as a kid, when K-State basketball was terrible, I followed them, but they were awful, never in the tournament. I had an affinity for Arizona. I kind of always liked them a little bit. They knocked out a KU team in 97 that was a number 1 seed in the tournament, and I always loved them for that. So I've always kind of liked Arizona. And then Utah. Utah's the most complicated case, and I know that hits home for BYU fans. I mean, look, I was as combative as anybody with them on Twitter for a while and seeing some of that arrogant attitude. But one, I've been very impressed by their leadership. Listening to the president and like Mark Harlan, the athletic director, at their press conference, like those guys get it.
Yeah, they did. That was really impressive, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, they get it. And I thought, okay, it's very clear why Utah has had the success that they have had in the Pac-12 with the football program, because these guys, and Whittingham, obviously, I already had a world of respect for.
Yeah.
So they get it. I would also say I've seen a lot of contrition from some of their fans. Some of the most vocal Utah fans out there being kind of like, okay, hey, like you guys actually were right. Like we can accept this. So there's that element at play. And then it annoyed me. It drove me nuts at the time, and I was always happy to go after them. But I also have an understanding of where they were coming from, because being a Group of 5 school that finally gets the call up to the Pac-12, which up until the very end here was a pretty esteemed conference. And you definitely, I can see how like over the years, that is, you very badly wanted to get there. And you finally climb that mountain and you get there, and then you start kicking people's butt when you get in the league and you're winning the league, back-to-back years and beating USC and beating Oregon. Like, I understand why that was a great scenario for Utah. There's no reason that they would ever want to leave that scenario. It was playing out swimmingly for them. So I understand why they had such a vehement just distaste for having that explode and going to the Big 12. Now, did it get a little carried away there for a while? Yes. But, do I get a little carried away with things every once in a while? Yes, I absolutely do too. So I just am kind of at this place now with them where I'm like, look, Utah's going to be a really nice ad from a football standpoint for the league. And I can appreciate the contrition that we've seen from some of the fans, and the leadership definitely seems to get it and know what's going on. So I don't harbor hard feelings for basically anybody from the 4 new schools across the board. Sans like, I do wish that Michael Crow would shut up, but like that's outside of that, I think I'm pretty good with most of what's happening there.
Well, that sounded cathartic for you. I wasn't trying to drive that type of response from you, but I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the nuance. I love that word. I think it is nuanced. All of these college relationships are nuanced. That's the great thing about college football, is it is all nuance and passion. And you can be doing 2 polar opposite things at the same time and be right in both of them. So I hate Utah, but at the same time, I've had the utmost respect for Utah, because 50-60% of the people that are up on the hill are members of the church. They pay tithing. A lot of them are graduate and they're postgraduates from BYU to go and get their masters. So there's so much interbreeding between these 2 universities here in Utah. I think everybody can excuse sort of how our relationship is to one another, but related to everybody else, I think the page has been turned. And I think there's a breath of fresh air going out now. You're not hearing Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA talk about this anymore. They want to turn the page and move on. They're walking away from Washington State and Oregon State, which I think is a travesty, but that's the way it goes. And they don't care about Cal or Stanford at this point. And I think the same thing with the Four Corner School. They don't want to talk about what just went through. They're ready to turn the page and move on. And I think that's probably the most healthy aspect that any of us could have is, let's look ahead and see where we're going to be. We got a heck of a football season coming up, and I think that's something that we can look forward to as a group. I only have 2 more questions just between you and I, and then I got a couple of panelists I want to bring on for a couple minutes, if that's okay with you. I'm not sure how much time you have tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I can do another 10, 15 minutes. If that's
okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll ask one question then. This question is, do you think that Stanford makes it into any other conference outside of what they might cobble together at the Pac-12 level or Pac-4 level?
Man, that's a really good question. That's a tough one, I feel like, to answer right now, because they clearly do have a lot of support in some high places, namely university presidents who, we've heard over and over again, like they drive a lot of the realignment stuff.
Right.
And so that's going to help a lot. And I also think there is, as much as it annoys me, I think there is a sense of a lot of people in the college athletic space of being like, hey, we can't let this happen to Stanford. Like,
right.
We can't let this happen to Stanford. When really
one of us, right?
Really, it should be much more like we can't let this happen to Oregon State or Washington State. Right. But instead, it's Stanford. It is what it is. Like Notre Dame has been a big proponent of that in the ACC. They seem to really be leading the charge on, for somewhat selfish reasons, because they want to keep that series going with Stanford. They don't want Stanford to have to drop down to FCS or something like that. But those are some pretty well-placed allies for Stanford in all of this. So I do still think there's even an outside shot that they would get into the Big Ten somehow, and then also still an outside shot of the ACC happening. I don't know. If you really put a gun to my head at the end of the day, I'd say probably not but I don't know. I'm thinking like 40-60, something like that. Anytime I always hated making predictions in the realignment thing. So I'd always default to like 30-70, 40-60 a lot of times. Right. And someone told me that 40-60 is actually like the best position to take, because you can say, hey, I thought there was like a decent chance here. So if it happens, you're like, hey, I was a believer. But then if it doesn't, you're like, well, I didn't even get to 50-50. So I guess I'll take the 40-60 stance there on it actually happening for Stanford. I think it's pretty close right now. I don't expect that battle to really be done in the ACC right now. We'll see. And then the Big Ten, I still think, remains somewhat of a possibility out there.
Yeah, I think that Cal and Stanford both will probably end up in the Big Ten. That's going to be my guess. They need some off weeks. It's a murderer's row now. They brought in, except for UCLA, they brought in 3 other programs that are ready to go now, and they won't need to tune up to compete in the Big Ten. So I think they need some bye weeks. That's just my opinion, but we'll soon find out, I guess. All right, let me bring in a couple of my key contributors, and I call them my partners. That'd be Immaculate View and Moen. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on, and good to see you, John. Watched your show many times.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate that. Great to see you too.
We've only got him for another 10-15 minutes, guys. So let's just get a couple questions out and see if we
I got a big one. I really wanted to get one in.
Go ahead, please.
He's a KSU guy. I have to talk to him about this because I'm from Iowa. I'm an Iowa guy, but family and friends that are Cyclones. Where do you see KSU, KU, OSU to a degree standing on making sure that ISU does not get kind of put out to pasture when it comes to, say, any type of division setup or pod setup or just any type of scheduling setup? Because I've seen some folks kind of maybe from the Texas side of things that think that they're closest to West Virginia and Cincy, they should go that way. And I don't think they realize how much history there is in the Big 8.
Yeah, if I am, someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the longest standing game that has been played in the Big 12 right now is K-State and Iowa State. It's
a big one.
That goes back a long, long ways. And maybe Kansas is in there too. I feel like that was always in the K-State game though with Iowa State. So and look, it's turned into when we talk about like things happening kind of the internet sphere. K-State, Iowa State has turned into a really nice rivalry basically because of the internet, because of Twitter. It really wasn't like that when I was growing up, but in the last 5 to 10 years, it's kind of taken off with that. And a lot of that obviously is credit to Matt Campbell and getting the program into a much healthier place. And K-State and Iowa State have played, there were like 8 years in a row where the game was decided by a touchdown or less, like these really close games that come down to the wire and the fans get pretty heated and all that.
So Farmageddon.
Yeah, Farmageddon, exactly. I mean, I definitely don't want that to go away at all. And I mean, same with Oklahoma State. And I have an immense amount of respect for their program. I think Boone Pickens Stadium at night I would rank that as high as any place up in the Big 12. And for 10 years, I was traveling to every K-State football game. So I've been to every place in the league many times. And I think that's one of the great environments to watch a game in the league. So I would very much want to see that. And then you think even like basketball, it would be a shame if KU and Iowa State are not going to play a home and home every single year in basketball. Like those are tremendous games. So I don't know what pull the schools actually have. I really don't have a good gauge for how much influence they would have over that with how all that would go down, whether it's going to be protected rivals or pods or whatever. But I would certainly hope that that's the way that it goes. I can tell you that that is the way that I would prefer that it happened. And I think most K-State fans would feel the same way on that.
Moen, before you go, let me get a couple notices out here. If you're new to the show, especially if you're one of John's viewers and have come here for the first time tonight, please subscribe. And everybody turn on your notifications. Hit that little bell icon underneath the video that you're watching. And that way next time we have a show, you'll get notified. I know John's constantly talking about that as well. We really thrive on those notifications and you guys subscribing. We wouldn't have shows without them. And I really appreciate you if you did that. If you want your comment to be read for sure, make it a super chat. Otherwise, I'll try to get comments as they come. Or if you're a member, those always get preferred. Let me get a couple super chats here, and then I'm going to turn it over to Moen. Blake Phillips says, Big 12 Mafia, let's go. Thank you, Blake, very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate your $2. And then Blake Phillips again, Nathan looking like Father Hezekiah. Is that what that means? Do you guys know who Father Hezekiah is? I think that's like a literary reference. And then last one is Summit Hawk says, can adding OSU and WSU as partial shares and adding Pac Network rebranded to give the Big 12 an option to gain more in contract? Moen, I'll let you answer that, and then you can go on to your own question. But what do you guys think? I actually think this could happen. If Cal Stanford lead to the Big 10 or the ACC, I could see both of them joining with the Big 12 and bringing the money that they have in their war chest, and also bringing along their network. What do you guys think about that?
Just real quick, I see that as a game of chicken. Stanford and Cal looking right down the barrel at Washington State and Oregon State, and both sides trying to be the last ones out the door, so to speak, catch those funds on the way out. So it's possible. I don't know if the Big 12 has more room for it. What are you hearing, John?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, everything seems to be moving in the direction right now of expansion being shut down for now. I know Yormark went on the Marchand and Oram podcast and said that this week. Right. Jamie Pollard, the athletic director at Iowa State, said that on 365 here recently. That was maybe like a week ago or so. So I think it is fairly unlikely. I guess there were some rumors about that in the immediate aftermath of everything happening. I guess maybe you don't totally shut the door on that or any kind of Big 12 expansion for right now. And you always wonder, look, one thing you learn in realignment is even if people are saying things publicly, be it presidents, athletic directors, commissioners, whoever, that does not necessarily mean that is accurate. So right. I understand having some skepticism with what Yormark's comments have been, but it does feel to me, at least like in the immediate short term, they're probably not going to expand. And I think that's a problem here with this scenario, because like Oregon State and Washington State, they need this to happen quickly. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Ross Dellinger's article I was reading yesterday where the quote was like, we have days, not weeks. And that was them responding to like trying to figure out what Stanford was going to do, because that's the domino that will determine what's going to happen with Oregon State and Washington State. So it just feels to me like the timelines are going to be off there. Like if the Big 12 are going to open up to that sort of expansion, it probably wouldn't be happening quick enough here. for Oregon State and Washington State. And I guess the one last thing I would throw in there is that to me, I think there's still some dispute right now as to whether or not the pro rata will kick in from Fox on the contract for the new 4 corner schools, which we know ESPN, it's in the contract. Fox, like Brett McMurphy had reported that at one point, and I do definitely, I mean, he's a great reporter. I trust him. But then, like Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic had disputed that and said maybe that wasn't happening. Yormark got asked about it on the Marchand and Oram podcast and it seemed like probably, I think he said like Fox is doing their share or something like that, helping out. It was a little vague. It wasn't totally, he avoided the question a little bit, which makes me think that there are still some discussions being had there. Long ways to say. I don't know that the TV networks would be super thrilled about opening up the pockets again for even at partial shares and all that, like whatever money would be actually on the table there. I'm not sure that they're going to be real crazy about that. So I still see it as a fairly unlikely scenario.
Okay. Moen, what do you think about that? And then ask John a question, please.
Well, I don't think we know the contract deals of the Pac-12 network. I would assume if that were to happen, that it would all be liquidated and split among all the parties that are already invested in the network. So I don't think it's as easy as just taking the network with them. That's going to have to be worked out contractually. Chris Kleiman done a fantastic job at K-State. I definitely think that they're a sneaky pick to make the CFP this year. I also think Chris Kleiman's got a good chance at being coach of the year. What do you think the odds are at the end of the season? The Iowa job opens up. Would he say yes to a return to his home state of Iowa?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on the one. That is like the one job I think that concerns K-State fans a little bit and has for a while. I mean, for those who aren't familiar with that, Chris Kleiman's an Iowa guy. He played at Northern Iowa. And I mean, Gene Taylor also, by the way, the athletic director is in Iowa. He spent some time at Iowa as one of the associate ADs here. So there was some concern there with the athletic director job opening up there. But Kleiman and Gene Taylor, I bring up Gene Taylor because they're really tied at the hip. They work together at North Dakota State. Gene Taylor gets the job at K-State, then winds up hiring Chris Kleiman to come here. And Kleiman is a guy who he just wants to coach football. He's not somebody that really enjoys parading around and doing like the touring fan stops across the state, like that sort of stuff. He does some of it, but that's not really what he wants to do. And one of the things Gene Taylor really allows him to do here is kind of just be the behind the scenes guy and just coach football. And that's his guy. And I think that relationship is very symbiotic and works really well. So I think the thought with K-State fans is like, as long as Gene Taylor is still here as the athletic director and he's being paid well, which he now is, he's making a top 25 salary in the country. K-State stepped up and has paid him after what he did last year. I just have a hard time seeing it actually happen, even if that job were to open up, but I certainly recognize that it's a possibility. So I can't remember. Did you ask me for like a specific percentage chance that he would take the job?
I just wanted to see where your measurement was on it. And keep in mind that the Iowa AD job is also open.
Right. And so the Iowa AD job being open, I think pretty quickly the smoke on that seemed to be the interim that they have right now is the most likely candidate to get the job. So that kind of subsided some of the concern, at least in K-State circles, that they have popped up immediately. I think most people feel like both are pretty safe. The other thing, Chris Kleiman was on I mentioned that tour where it's the Catbacker tour is what they call it, where they're going across the state talking to fan groups this summer. I mean, I heard him say it once, and I know he said it at another stop, that he plans on retiring at K-State. So he is publicly saying that. Again, we know that that doesn't necessarily mean anything when it comes down to it. He's a pretty principled, grounded, level-headed guy. I mean, I can also tell you, like, Nebraska definitely was trying to get involved with him when they had initially been turned down by Matt Rule. And Chris Kleiman basically was a non-starter for him. So we've already seen him turn down a similar job in Big Ten country. I still think it is probably less likely that he would take the job, but I fully recognize that that would be something I think he would probably listen to much more than the Nebraska job. We'll put it that way.
It's very fair enough. John, you've been great giving me a half hour. I feel like I stole that time from you, so I really appreciate you being here tonight. I know it took a couple weeks to get something on the board, but thanks for being here and really spending your time. If you ever need help on your shows, you got 3 guys here who can help take some load off if you want it, but you do a great job, and I just want to make sure you know that we really recognize everything you've done over the last year and what you're going to continue to do for the Big 12.
No, I appreciate that. You guys are too kind. I'm happy to do it. I also appreciate the flexibility with my schedule. It's a little crazy trying to hold down a day job and then all the extra content stuff I'm doing, and then we're ramping up here toward fall with everything getting going. So I very much appreciate the flexibility and really enjoyed the chance to come on and chat with you guys. So appreciate
All right, fantastic. You bet. Everybody, thanks again, John. Find him on his YouTube channel, John Kurtz, and also the same thing, JL Kurtz on Twitter. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Take care, guys.
All right, we'll see you later.
See ya.
Oh,
Good dude.
always a good interview. I love him so much, and I really appreciate
Great
him
radio
being here.
voice.
Yeah,
He's a
Man,
good-
I wish I had a radio voice.
He's
like
a good
that.
talker. He knows how to carry it.
If you're new to the channel, before those people that follow John leave, please subscribe, turn on your notifications so you know when our show is going. Big 12 Mafia. We try to go 4 or 5 times a week, and we really appreciate everybody that are our members, all the super chats we receive, and all these new people that we've had in. We're up to 125 people viewing right now. Great number on a Thursday night when we were up against some heavy competition with Greg Flugar and Big Ten Ted. And I recognize those guys too. They have great shows. Let's get to some super chats before we sort of jump into a different conversations, guys. So, we already talked. No, did we do this one? Yeah, we already did this one. So this one from R Web for $10. Thank you, R Web. Appreciate your super chat. Evening, guys. What are your thoughts on if their CFP money shares go from a per conference to per team model? Would that plus ESPN Pro Rata make you consider adding Washington State and Oregon State in a partial share? I haven't heard that before. What do you guys think?
I've heard conflicting information on this. I've heard that it was adjusted to where the conferences get paid by the amount of teams they had. And then I've heard that that's not the case, and that's what's going to be negotiated at the end of this month. So I don't know which information is accurate. So I really can't make a point there. WSU and OSU would be great ads for Big 12, and I know you hate to hear it, but it would be for a 10:30 at night game. They're going to be playing 10:30 at night,
Right.
almost 50% of the time.
Or more.
That'd be the only other way you're going to make revenue off of adding those 2 schools is to have them playing 10:30 p.m. consistently. Like that's going to be their time slot for you're going to get 4 OSU games like that and 4 WSU games like that a season.
Very
Yeah,
fair. What do you think?
probably,
Magda?
yeah, and you're probably not getting guaranteed any other time slots. Like it could get that bad. And what are they going to do? I mean, they really can't say no to that. In terms of if the rules are like this for the CFP and this is where it's going, then yeah, that makes some sense. 2 more schools equals a little more pay out of it. But for the ones that are there, it doesn't really do anything for them. Like it doesn't make them more money. Like it's just
Right.
two more cuts out of the pot that go to the conference, but it's really just going to the schools. So it's great for the 2 schools if that's the case. But I don't really see that as pushing the Big 12 to make that choice because that's not more money for those schools that are voting. Yeah, that's pretty much how I would see that.
I see the CFP is a separate issue from the point I was going to make. For the CFP, I don't think they're going to change the payout model the way it is. They're not going to reward or condemn conferences by the number of teams they have. The payout model is based on your production, right? And so you're going to have more teams represented in the playoff in the 12-team playoff. So that'll definitely be affected. But I don't think until 26, I don't think the payout model is going to change. On the other side of it, as far as Oregon State and Washington State joining the Big 12, I've been saying this on Twitter. I definitely think it could happen. If it all depends on if California and Stanford leave. If they genuinely are gone and it frees them up, what's to stop Yormark going to Amazon and saying, hey, I can give you 2 games a week? And you can, it's a possibility it could be any 2 teams in the entire conference. I don't see why that wouldn't be attractive. Now, Amazon might not want it. They've been in and out of these discussions over the last several months, but it's an opportunity for them to get in, low impact. You bring in these schools that are good schools. They'll be competing. I don't see why not. I don't see a reason to say no immediately.
I guess it might depend. Maybe Moen can say more on this, but it might depend on like if ESPN has plans to maybe do their own streaming of games, like with ESPN Plus or something, whereas long-term plans with Amazon might cross that. And that's nothing that we'd know about because they're not even have listed plans about being on ESPN Plus. So I can see it possibly an issue there, but that would be kind of done in negotiations. But it's an idea, trying to think on how to pay for them to come in without forcing them to do something like play at 10:30 every night.
Which I think is a reality. I mean, that very much.
Yeah, that's the reality. And I don't think the Big 12 is going to get in bed with anybody else other than ESPN and Fox at this point. ESPN basically paid for that expansion. So I think they're going to remain pretty loyal to the ESPN-Fox partnership.
Oh, I definitely agree with that as well. Blake Phillips, another super chat. Thank you, Blake, being active tonight. Appreciate you being here. He says, I say 2 protected rivals, then free for all each season. What do you guys think about now I'm assuming he's talking about the Big 12. Every conference does this a little differently. How many protected rivalries do you anticipate in 2024? We'll start with Big 12 and then we'll move to the Big 10.
Oh, well, I mean, we're kind of doing the Big 12. It's fine. I would probably aim towards 3. Everything I've looked at, especially because I kind of like the pods idea, and that's basically 3 protected rivals. You could maybe do it with 2, but then you're running into issues like down in Texas, like who's playing who. When you run into like Arizona State, Arizona, BYU, and Utah, okay, which one? How are you going to work that out with just 2 when it's much easier if you work that out with 3? Because then they all just have protected rivals with each other. So I could see some issues with that, but if you can figure it out with 2, that does give you more freedom with your schedule.
Moen?
Yeah, it's going to end up depending on how many teams are actually in these conferences by the time 2024 rolls around.
Right.
I mean, if the Big 10 does swell up to 20 by adding Stanford and Oregon, I think you're probably going to look at a model where you're going to have pods of 5 teams. You're going to play the 4 teams in your pods, and one of them is going to be a protected rival. And then you're going to play the other 5 teams from one of the other pods, and it's going to rotate year by year, or something to that effect. So I think if you go to 20, you only have 1 protected rival.
Okay.
The numbers don't quite add up, though, because that'd be 6 teams out west who would be in your
Well, you would have to shift somebody out.
Nebraska would have to be part of the West.
Well, it'd probably be
no. Teams in the West.
You
have one too many,
and it would probably be Cal.
Oh, I see. Forgot. You guys are counting Stanford and Cal. I apologize.
Right. If it goes to 20. If it goes to 20.
Okay.
But
that's right.
Problem.
Yeah,
we don't know. The wheel still hasn't stopped spinning yet.
Right.
Once the wheel stops spinning and we know where everybody's going to be and what that number is going to be, it's going to be a lot easier to figure out.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that's why if both Cal and Stanford make it into the Big 10, I'm basically throwing my whole 25 plan out the window because it just doesn't work. That's why I say it. I'm trying to figure out. I could see what he's talking about doing like if it's at 20. It's tough if they take all of those because you almost have to go straight to 24. Just the math is really bad.
Well, you only go to 24 if you're able to get the ACC.
I understand that.
So
that's what I'm saying.
Stays strong.
It's a complicated problem right now, and that's maybe why things are kind of held up because some of the math's not working.
Some of the math's not working. That sounds like George Kliavkov's worst nightmare. Some of the math is just not working.
Sounds like
it's on the back of an envelope.
His entire last year.
Grand Dan, I think you might be a new viewer, or if you've been here, I apologize. I haven't recognized you. Thanks for being here tonight. It was a great show tonight. We had on with John Kurtz, and then everything else, just being here. I really appreciate it. He says, you can count on John to be an honorable friend to BYU in Utah. His podcast, like yours, is first class. Thank you very much. And I know John believes that as well. John has done a fantastic job. He has been a loyal person to sort of follow and hang on to through all of this realignment. And he helped me get my show off the ground. So I hold him in high esteem. So you guys have anything you want to say about John since he's gone? You can kind of talk about him behind his back while he's out the room.
Nah, he's slick. He's a pro. He's very good at what he does. And, I find it very easy to talk with you guys here as a group, as a show, kind of bouncing off each other. But he sits in there and just delivers for long periods of time by himself. So he definitely is very good at what he's doing.
I love his voice, but I hate the font he uses on his YouTube thumbnails. I just don't like that font.
All right, let's get to some chats. These last shows have been so wall to wall. I haven't gotten a lot of these messages from our members, and I want to absolutely call him out tonight if I can. Coos Corner's in the house, by the way. Good to see you. Way to be here, Justin. Looking forward to Saturday afternoon. Blake, who's a member, he says, once a Big 12 team can win a national championship and have success like a Clemson, the SEC crap will subside. The SEC, Bama, Georgia, with an LSU winning once a decade. I've said this several times that I think if the Big 12 can get somebody into the final every year, they wouldn't have to win it. But if they can get somebody into the Final Four, into the semis, and then into the final every 2 or 3 years, the esteem everybody will hold the Big 12 in will jump leaps and bounds. Because that would represent exactly what the Big Ten has been contributing over the same time period. It's been every 2 or 3 years, and it's been leaps and bounds. So that would really help set it apart, in my opinion.
I think the Big 12 did that this year with TCU.
Oh, I agree.
I know they laid an egg in the national championship game, but going out there and beating the number 2 team in the country in Michigan, I mean, that's, they've won a game. I mean, that's more than a Pac team has really done in the last there is no Pac anymore.
Right.
In the last 10 years or so. I love this guy's profile picture. That kid is ready for some football. He is stoked.
Blake is a fantastic fan. I love having him here every time we do a show. Immaculate, do you want to say anything, make a comment on that?
I can. I noticed that you also just got yourself a new
subscriber. I do, but go ahead. I'm going to ring the bell in just a second. Go ahead.
For me, I think that what the Big 12 has going for it isn't necessarily that one team is going to come out and prove to be the top team. I think it's going to be kind of a crucible that forces a team, if they can stay healthy. I think injuries could be a problem for the Big 12 going forward with so much good competition. But if a team can stay healthy and run through that, I could definitely see them surprising some folks. Some folks might consider it to be a Cinderella. I wouldn't, but they might not be known for when they come up. I could see Big 12 getting a champion.
Yeah, I can too. So let's do this. A new member we have in the house. That would be our web. We get long before the show really got going, and you've been a loyal member. All of your super chats have been wonderful, and I appreciate you signing up to be a member of the channel. If you want to join our web, just go to the Big 12 Mafia channel, hit the join button. It's right in the middle of the main page, and you'll have options there. Different levels give you different things, but definitely I defer to those member comments before I normally take other comments. Not that I don't like the others, but they're paying for the access. So it's great to see you here on web. I really, really appreciate it. I was wondering when that was going to happen, to be honest. I kind of had a bet with myself wondering, when are you actually going to get that done? All right, let's move down the line here. I do have, just so everybody knows, in 15 minutes, I have Jake Brandon, who's the executive director of the Coug Connect NIL for BYU. Please stick around because we're going to answer NIL questions. Not just BYU questions, NIL questions generally for all of your schools. I know you have questions. Stick around and I'll ask them from what your comments are. I know you guys have got some good ones. Let's do some comments here. Let's see. Summit Hawk says we can all go to war, but all have like-minded support for making it through the storm and loving the top to bottom competition. That is the Big 12 top to bottom. I love that comment. Either you guys want to comment on that? I love that.
I think that's how everyone feels right now. You know, you're all just came through thinking that the Big 12 was going to get chopped up and eaten up and everything that's been going there for a decade. So I think everyone's kind of feeling the love right now, but give yourself a couple seasons. You'll start to wish the others.
There you go.
You'll get there.
Wait till Utah comes in and dominates that conference.
Oh, stop it.
You might not be
That's
going,
nonsense.
love them so much.
You guys, I'm gonna laugh when Utah goes 8-4 the first year. Can we have a bet? You have to wear a BYU jersey, Moen, if Utah goes 8-4 the first year in the Big 12.
I don't know. After this football season, you might have to get a big one for me. Got some tailgating to do.
David Floyd has a comment here. He says, have you guys seen statements from the fans of Syracuse, Boston College, Wake Forest, North Carolina State, Georgia Tech, Pitt, etc.? It's beginning to dawn on them that they could be left out. And I said this 2 months ago. It's on record. I think I even bookmarked it on Twitter. I said they would get to a point where they panicked, and any school that didn't have an auto invite to the SEC and the Big Ten would go to the Big 12 and say, we don't want to get left behind. What do we need to do to get out? And that 8th vote might not be Notre Dame to blow the thing up. It might be a Boston College who wants a home and doesn't want to get left out. And they go to Florida State. They go to North Carolina State. They go to Virginia Tech, and they say, hey, you guys want out of this thing? You want to go to these other conferences? You can have my vote because I've already got a home with the Big 12.
Yeah, I North Carolina State has a home. North Carolina State ain't getting left out because they're in North Carolina.
Yeah, but look at the others. Boston College, Syracuse, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech. Those are all schools that are concerned.
Yeah, but Pitt, I don't think has to be concerned. They're going to end up in the Big 12 anyway. I think that's got to be one of the top targets for the Big 12.
I think
Georgia Tech, maybe. You know, Georgia Tech might be the one that I really think they need to work on.
Immaculate.
But
I would say, you know, I kind of pointed out when we first saw Stanford and Cal and SMU all together, and people were just thinking it was just about SMU money. I was kind of pointing out, yeah, but notice they also are that, you know, that private kind of elite style university, big money, big connections. It would kind of suit what's left over of the ACC should some of those schools not get homes anywhere else to kind of have their own style of conference. So I think some of those schools, I think they know that they may not have a spot unless it's a full-on brokered. ESPN gets them all somehow in the Big 12 and into the SEC. But they probably need to start waking up because they need to look at each other like their competition.
You guys, I'm going to take a second here and just give you guys time. Did you both watch Greg's show? I caught the end of it.
I caught most of it. I caught the beginning, and I didn't catch the last part of it, obviously, because I was in the green room.
I have 10 minutes here. I want you guys to tell me what you thought of the show that Greg just went through, and you can start in any order you want. But your insightful comments, I think, there's people here who would be curious about what your opinions are.
Well, my dog in that race is basically because I am connected with you guys. But what I've seen from him, I certainly understand why folks have a very bad taste in their mouth.
Let's be clear, you're talking about Altamore.
Of course.
Okay. I just want to make sure we say it is.
If I was to ever have a talk with the guy, I would say, I think it might be time for you to change your MO. There are times when I hear him that I'm like, you know, it would be great if some of this could be listened to and not have it be tainted by all of the other stuff. But I think that he really needs to kind of take a look at the situation and say, you know, if you're going to be a USC guy, you're kind of getting into a different realm now. And I would say, you know, you may want to change your course a little bit because from what I've seen, it's nothing to be proud of. I know personally myself, I'm always trying to not get into arguments, not get into fights, not say things about people because this is what happens. It comes back later, people see it later, and you just kind of looking a little shorter. So, I know with you and with Greg, that it's a very sore subject. So I kind of just kick back and let folks who have some skin in that game talk about it. But I think some and maybe some others need to kind of take a look at this situation and say, what are you really gaining from being that way? And that's probably how I feedback.
Okay. Moen?
Tony Altomore's a douchebag. Genetics 56 is also a douchebag. They took shots at people's personal lives.
Yeah.
Whatever disagreement you have with somebody on sports, to take it to that level where you're going to bring people's family into it, that's just chicken shit. I think Tony has probably got narcissistic personality disorder. He can never admit he's wrong. Even when he was wrong, he was somehow right. Greg had the story right all along.
Right.
And that's shaken out. All of Tony's charts and all of Genetic 56's charts and all their personal attacks didn't change the fact that Greg Pflugar had this right. That's it. Just come out, just say, hey, you know what? I was wrong. You owe people an apology. Besides Greg, Big 12 fans, he painted them to be basically a cult of people believing disinformation. You owe Big 12 fans an apology.
He based that on BYU being a cult and everything else that went with the religion. And I was one of those people he personally attacked. So I absolutely think that happened.
Yeah, no, that's bullshit. And I'm sorry, I don't want to be associated with the guy. I don't even want to be associated with shows that are associated with the guy, which is why I don't go on Mark Rogers. The fact that he has both of them on his program still, that's a travesty, because those guys are pieces of shit for even attacking Greg's family. Just chicken shit, douchebags. I could use stronger language, but that's, he owes a lot of people an apology.
He does.
And you know what, Tony, you can block my new Twitter account after this show's over, because, that'd probably be a good idea, because I don't want to see anything from you. And
he has minions as well.
Yeah.
Ones that we haven't brought up. And I'm not going to mention those people's names because that would give them recognition. And I want them to disappear into the ether. But I want everybody who's out there watching now and is going to watch this on replay. We are all, we support what Greg has done over the last year or so. And we back up all of the support that he has put out for us. We return back to him and want to recognize that. I also want to say that as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to talk about TJA anymore. I just don't want to spend time on it. I thought it was done. I had quit talking about him, and then out of nowhere, this genetics guy brought him back in, and it erupted again somehow. I'm still not sure how that. It's all the P2 garbage, and anyways, let's just not spend any more time on it. I appreciate you guys helping me burn through that. I needed that as a little bit of therapy, but I think Greg did a wonderful job tonight. Here's a good comment from AF Blue 82. K-State will take a step back without Deuce Vaughn. As a Baylor guy, the fall off after not having Abram Smith was significant. I get the same vibes with K-State. I see stock down. I have K-State as either in the final of the conference or one game out of the final in the conference. What do you guys think?
I've got them as a conference winner, and I think they're a sneaky CFP team this year. I think if things fall the right way, I think Kansas State could make the college football playoffs. I think what he has done there, building that program, is fantastic. I can't speak enough highly of the guy except to say he'll probably be the Iowa coach next year.
Well, if that's the case, he better damn well do good this year. I think they're going to win it all.
There we go. There we go. Throw down the gauntlet. I love it.
No, but it's seriously, though. It's K-State. They always play above their weight, and it seems like they've now got some weight. So I'd say that's a pretty scary team. Not having Deuce, obviously that's a big deal, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've reloaded and they're ready to go. I haven't looked into them per se, but all the people who do seem to think that it's a pretty solid team.
I sent him that. Sorry, I'm trying to get Jake in here, and he says he doesn't have the link. I've got another comment I want to bring up. What do you guys think about this? If the ACC wants more money, MH5, by the way, thanks, MH5, wants more money, why not band together with the Big 12 and the Big East and do your own postseason in basketball, sell the media rights? Those conferences have the majority of the championships, I guess. That's what he's saying there. What do you think about that?
Oh, I that would get a very sharp rebuke from anyone in the NCAA if they ever tried to do that. Even when they passed the autonomous conferences and what rules they gave them, it was specifically done that way it was so that they couldn't possibly touch anything that has to do with March Madness. If these conferences were to try and do something on their own, it probably wouldn't go so well for them. So I honestly, I don't see that. I mean, I get it. Maybe sometime way down the road if some major breaks happen. But for now, I think Big 12 is probably just going to get themselves a whole lot of credits.
Moen?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't know that there's any viable option out there for the ACC to make more money right now. Not to the level they need to keep teams like Florida State and Clemson placated. It's not. I mean, Stanford and Cal right now, they're not finding the money for them. So
Right. I think that's fair. Okay. I wasn't sure you were done there, Moen. Sorry.
Yeah,
that was a pregnant pause. All right. Let's bring in Jake Brandon. Hey, Jake, how are you doing tonight?
Man, I'm good. I don't know why my camera's not working. I feel bad.
Oh, that's all right. We don't get to see Moen either. It's not a big deal. So let me introduce you to everybody. I think you know Moen and Immaculate. You've been on with them before.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Jake, good to see you again. Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. And then I'm going to introduce you to the people that are watching. If you're new to the show, please subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you know when our shows are. Just hit that little bell underneath the video that you're watching, and that'll turn on notifications so you don't miss us in the future. Give us a comment or suggestion and give us a thumbs up. That all helps, as they say, that all helps the numbers in the calculus for Google. So if it helps for them, it helps for me. And then if you want your comment to be read, you can leave a regular comment. You can do a super chat, which those have been highlighted tonight. I think you've seen several of those. And then the other option is you become a member. Go to the main Big 12 Mafia page. In the middle of the page, there's a join button. Click that join button, and it gives you the options to join. So Jake Brandon is the executive director of Coug Connect, who's the one of the two NILs that I know of for Brigham Young University. And one of the things I sort of proselytize on my show as often as I can about how important NIL is for not just BYU, but college athletics in general. So Jake, we're right outside the season. BYU's had a lot of movement. We had a couple of key injuries that happened in this last week. We tracked that all on your special memo that you send out to current subscribers. What's the feeling at fall camp there at BYU?
I think Tyler Batty made some remarks earlier this week that we've been more physical and done more hitting this fall camp than we ever have in the time before. And I'm sure that's coming from Jay Hill, the new defensive coordinator there, trying to shore things up on his defense. I was at dinner with some players the other night, 2 nights ago, and they were telling me that there's quite a few guys who are kind of banged up, but they're being very cautious with the starters. So if anyone's kind of banged up a little bit, they're pulling them pretty fast from action. But I think it's a pretty intense, pretty physical fall camp. I've had more trouble tracking down player-written insider reports than I ever have before, just because they've been going long and hard, and they're giving them long recovery periods in between. But they're pretty much going from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and having eating all their meals at the facilities, doing all their rehab at the facilities, and coming home completely exhausted. So I think it's a grind right now. I think it's a slog right now. A lot of college football teams are going through something similar, but it sounds like this year is extra physical compared to what some of the other past seasons, according to these 4-year, 5th-year starter guys.
Moen or Immaculate, you have any questions for Jake?
Well, Yeah, actually, I do. I've seen some news here recently about a bunch of collectives starting to come together.
Oh, I saw that today as well. That notice, yeah.
How do you guys feel about that? Because BYU, even though you're no longer independent, you still kind of have that independent streak. Are you guys looking at anything like that in the future, or are you guys looking to probably stay solo?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, I've seen some news of like 2 different Florida Gator collectives coming together, or 2 different like Arizona State collectives coming together. Is that what you're asking about specifically, Matt?
Notice that came out. Now I forgot to send it to you. I apologize. I will DM it to you. But basically, the Royal Blue is one of the collectives, and they're from across the country. I think there was a list of 15 or 20 that were all basically saying we're working together. And if and it sounds to me like you haven't even heard about it, so you might not be able to comment on it.
Yeah, didn't even catch you on that.
Oh no,
you're good, man. Ask away. Yeah, I haven't even like heard about that. I think that's interesting. Maybe that was a good way to kind of dispel this NIL and transfer portal is evil kind of thing that narrative we've got, where you've got these people inducing these people to leave for this money or that money. My experience with that, I think it's great. I hope that it works, and I hope that it kind of cuts out some shenanigans potentially. But my experience is you've got representatives from the players, and you've even got representatives from some of these collectives that are talking. So it's kind of, in my opinion, it might end up being kind of like the Alliance, where you've got
right.
we would never do anything to destroy college football, and then right after the press conference, they're texting the laughing emojis, the laughing, crying emojis at each other. And of course, we're going to talk to Oregon and Washington, of course, So I don't know. It's a cool in theory. We'll see how it goes. But everybody's so careful using these representatives and people to communicate and discuss that it could just be kind of a PR move to take away some of the stigma with NIL and the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think I'm saying in chat, they're called the Collective Association, and they have like 17 members.
Yeah,
that does sound familiar.
And that was my fault for not sending that to you earlier today, Jake. When I saw it, I was like, "Oh, I got to get this over to Jake," and then I got distracted, squirrel. And next thing you know, I forgot all about
squirrel.
It.
Oh, you're good, man. I've been pretty busy today until about 7:45, so it's no big deal, man. I get it.
So tell us about Micah Harper.
Yeah, so he's got an ACL tear, season-ending injury. Pretty devastating, right? He's a guy that brings a lot of physicality to the defense. He's a guy that he can play multiple positions. He has played time at corner. He's played time at the slot corner nickel positions, safety, free safety, strong safety.
Yeah.
So that one definitely hurts. It would hurt a lot more, I think, last year. From everything I'm hearing, and I've got pretty regular contact with people around the program, is that you're going to see a lot of cover 1 and cover 3, which is going to put you in a different kind of personnel grouping than you'd probably see Mike. I mean, you could see him, depending on what personnel you're seeing on the offense, you could see him at a slot or a nickel or a corner, but I really think they're going to run with Malik Moore at safety and lean on his leadership and his experience there. And then I think you're going to see a lot of Eddie Heckard play corner or move around to cover the best guy on the defense. And then you'll see Cam Garrett and you'll see Jacob Robinson kind of lock down the other corner spots or fill in at the other slot nickel. So it stinks. It's not what you want to hear. It's not what you want to happen. Your heart breaks for him. Those injuries add up, right? Like my good friend Mason Wake. I was talking with Mason the other day. He just recently medically retired. He said that when he went to the medical office to medically retire, they pulled out his file and he had 5 pages of injury history. And he's got 1 year to get his stuff fixed. So he's just basically be doing surgeries for the next year to get it fixed while the university's covering it. So Micah, it's the same thing. Like he's second ACL tear. And so they kind of add up. So you feel kind of crushed for Micah, really good kid, represents the university well, good student, good leader. So it just kind of stinks.
BYU's defense is the thing everybody's waiting on, right? The offenses have been good the last several years. Quarterbacks getting drafted to the NFL, they're going to play well. The offense, I think, will be okay with Keaton Slovis. I've watched a few of those hype videos, and he looks like he's spinning it real good. Who has been winning in camp more, offense or defense?
Ooh,
And I'm putting you on the spot because I know somebody else will ask you, wait a second, you picked against us?
Yeah. Well, hopefully, they've got a short memory, but yeah, I think that I would pick the offense right now. Just based on what I've heard. They've had one scrimmage that was kind of open, but they've had some other, I don't know if you call them scrimmages, but 11 on 11 ones versus ones sessions, right? They've done red zone sessions. They've done third and long sessions. They've done these things. And I get pretty good recaps about how they went. And there's definitely times where the defense is winning. And I think the defense is causing more problems for the O-line and causing more problems for the quarterbacks than they have in a long time at BYU. But I really think that A-Rod's a very experienced coordinator. He's got a lot of, and so is Jay Hill, but he's got a lot of time with this personnel. He knows his guys. He knows what they're good at. And I still think he has an edge there. So I'd probably pick the offense.
It's a tough question, right? Because you're not sure which is normally ahead. Maybe it's always the offense at the beginning of the season, but we know that the defense is completely turned over. A lot of people, there were transfers, brought in a lot of people on NIL or just transfers in general, but coming from other schools. And the defense that's the thing everybody's going to be waiting on. So I'm fascinated to see how that grows and how it gets better. Moen, do you have any questions? NIL related, especially?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I don't want to get too political or religious about this, but you're seeing a lot of these NIL collectives now. I've seen it in Iowa, Indiana, getting involved with like alcohol sales, different things to raise funds. Do you have any fears at BYU that, your program's going to be somewhat limited by some of the things you can't do that other NIL collectives around the nation can do?
I would put like FanDuel would be an example.
Right.
So the policy is right now that they don't want athletes at BYU doing NIL work with anything that's against the honor code, right? So if you read the honor code,
sure.
It's you're probably familiar with it. So yeah, I think that is a limiting factor. But the thing that I think is unique about BYU and its location on Silicon Slopes is you've got a lot of other different entities that are interested. I know the Built Bar people were under some hot water for some things that they had or hadn't done well. But one thing they've done perfectly and delivered on 100% is paying for every academic scholarship for the walk-on players, right? And at least in the case of Nebraska, I believe whatever their Cornhusker lager or beer was called, I can't remember, that it was going to subsidize walk-ons tuition and things. So I think BYU in some ways is ahead of the curve there with that. There's a few other companies here. Like I'll just shout out a company that I don't have any affiliation with them or anything, but NutriCost, which is a company here locally that makes supplements. They make protein, different supplements there. Like they have not like really reaped as much of the PR as I feel like they could have, but they do a lot of NIL that goes unrecognized around BYU. So I think there's just enough businesses that are connected to the Marriott School of Business and connected geographically with Silicon Slopes that you don't necessarily fall behind. It's just going to look different at BYU, right? It's going to be protein bars. There's a sports drink company that I'm a partner with, and they're just getting started up, but they've already got their eye on doing a lot of NIL work at BYU as well. So I just think it'll look different there, but I think there'll still be plenty of opportunities.
Jake, I sent you a message about that energy drink. You never got back to me. I'd love to help you prop that up if you need it.
We'll get you going as soon as we're ready to have affiliates in that. We'll look out for you, man.
I'm ready to go.
Okay, we're not. So we met a few nights ago, and we're gonna release to the KuConnect subscribers kind of a beta store where they can go in and buy some, basically to make sure everything works properly. And then we've already got some interns who are ready to go and start bringing on influencers. We're going to try and build a brand ambassador team within Defense Drinks, and then we're gonna be focused on BYU, but we're going to reach out to some other schools across the country as well. And some other collectives. We have some friends and some other collectives as well, and kind of create some opportunities for some other people too. But well, for sure, Nathan, don't you worry. Like we'll get you on, man.
Awesome. I can't wait. Anything I can do to help, I'm religious about this NIL stuff for BYU. I've waited my whole life to have the school get the respect, and it has. It's getting respect. Everybody always had it, but nobody ever talked about it. It wasn't politically correct to talk about how well respected BYU is out in the world. Whenever they would play a game, we would go to a Michigan. Everybody would say, wow, we really respect BYU. They're a great brand and a great school. But then they would go, BYU would leave and they'd go off and disappear again into this morass of no notice, and people would forget about us. And so, in my opinion, the NIL thing is the one area where we control our own destiny. And I would say this about any school's NIL. If there's 99 people watching this live right now, 101, and if you guys are fans of any school and there's a local NIL that you could contribute $10 a month to, do that. These kids need the money, and your organizations, your schools need the money to help keep these kids going. Mason Wake, Jake mentioned just a little bit ago, one of the best advocates for Cougs Connect. I think he might be your first mantle statue, Mason Wake in the air, jumping over somebody, Jake, and you make that an award. You give to the NIL standout, the Cougs Connect NIL standout for BYU every year, the Mason Wake Award. He's been such an amazing ambassador for Cougs Connect and for BYU just in general. He's a great kid, and it was really sad when we heard that he got hurt again.
Yeah.
So, Jake, now I'm going to give you a few minutes. Tell us what's going on with Cougs Connect, what you're kind of tuning up here for the season, and what people get when they subscribe to your service.
Yeah, so right now, this afternoon, I was supposed to meet with the entire basketball team, and we were going to onboard them with the affiliate links and get them promoting. Trevin Nell, who's a basketball player, is already on. We were going to bring the whole team on board. We've got some guys who are student visa guys and not able to do NIL in the States. Tomorrow they leave for Croatia. The whole team's going to Croatia, Italy to play some games. So we were trying to get those guys on board before they left. And Coach Pope had to change the practice schedule around. He canceled on me. So that's what I was working on, but I'm going to get him over text message. I probably right after this, I'll go text all those guys and get them all signed up. So we were working on that. I've got several hundred, I don't know how many, hundreds of jerseys coming to my house right now from the Philippines. If you've ordered your Cougs Connect jersey, most of them are in transit. Some of them are still finishing up production. And then we've got to go sort through those. So the way we were able to pay the players $20 a jersey sold, right? So if if Max Tooley, he sold 5 jerseys, or if he sold 50 jerseys, he'd make $1,000, right? Because it's $20 a jersey on there. So we've got the way we are able to pay them so well is we do all the shipping and fulfillment. And so we're going to have a whole bunch of jerseys laid out all across my house, sorting and stuffing into bags and getting them in the mail here soon. We're printing up some shirts. If you're a silver or a gold subscriber, if you're a gold subscriber, you've already ordered your jersey for free for being a gold subscriber. If you're a silver subscriber, we're printing up your shirts here in the next few days. Then they'll get here and we'll have to stuff those into bags and do that. So we're really just kind of doing some kind of grunt work right now to reward our subscribers who support us there. We've been getting fall camp. I've got Deion Smith text me, one of our running backs, right before I got on your show. He texted me saying he's got videos breaking down some film for us to teach about some running back skills. We're going to be putting that up here the next day or so. So it's always content creation, insider reports. And right now we're getting ready to kick off football season. So now it becomes the fulfillment grunt work of just sorting and stuffing things and writing addresses down and printing out labels and all that fun stuff. But yeah, our subscriptions, we start at $10 a month. If you don't want to subscribe, if you just want to donate $1 or you want to donate $2 a month or $5 a month, you can go to our donations tab on our page and you can donate that to us. And then we're able to give that to the players by having them create content for us, because we can't just hand over money, right? So no matter what your price point is, we can get you in. But if you're going to donate, you might as well at least donate the $10 and get all the perks that come with that. So for $10 a month of being a subscriber, you get access to the insider content. So you get all the reports about what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know, Nathan, you've been in that group for a while. I really feel like we break most news before anybody else.
Sure. Yeah, I've tried not to break news. I don't want to release stuff that's sort of on the DL, but yeah, there's been quite a bit in there. And we share also other things that are related to BYU on the outside too, not just dealing with the team.
Yeah, so I feel like you get a lot of value there. It's actually a pretty cool community. There's like subscribers who've helped each other out with their businesses or helped each other out in a personal way there as well. So it's a really cool community. You get access to that. You get access to our events. We've been hard doing events. We'll probably do a basketball event before the season starts, get a bunch of basketball players together. We'll either do a dinner or a clinic. You can come, get a bunch of autographs, talk to the players. It's very VIP. You've been to one of our events as well. You did a live show at one of our events. Yeah. And you get really exclusive access to the players like you wouldn't anywhere else. That's all for $10.
Yeah, we need to do that again. I know the football season makes that tough. Maybe we could do it for the basketball team. But yeah, those events are amazing. You're pressing palms and shaking hands and giving hugs to football players that are really idols for most people. It's pretty cool.
You see little kids come in, man. Their like faces light up and like they're just
right.
Big as saucers. It's pretty cool for the little kids. And then that's all for $10. So I feel like we give you a ton of value for $10 a month. At $40 a month, you get all of that. You get access to all our archive videos. So Devon Blackman has done dozens of videos with the players. We've done X's and O's videos that teach you how to stem a route as a wide receiver, how to block outside zone as a right tackle, all kinds of stuff. Like you can learn so much about football for $40 a month being our subscriber. And we've got more content coming after we initially released it. It'll all go to that archive. And then you get two swag bags, I guess. You get a swag bag before football season, which is the ones I was talking about. The stickers just showed up today. I don't know what your technical capabilities are, Nathan, but I'll text you a picture of this. I got some of the stickers. I got more coming, but I'll text you. I don't know if you can put up on the screen, but we've got stickers in there for your kids, for their water bottles, for back to school, for their lunch boxes or their laptops and that. They're all BYU football player stickers. And then we've got shirts coming out that we're mailing out to you as well. And then before basketball season, you'll get the same thing. You'll get a game day shirt. I think you get two of them for $40 a month. You get 2 game day shirts. You get a swag bag of stickers. You get the videos. And then you get everything else. You get the insider reports. You get that. And at Gold, it's all that stuff. We try and do an exclusive Gold event a year or two if we can. And then you also get a NIL jersey. You get a BYU football jersey that comes for you. You get a BYU Nike polo, which get a nice Nike BYU polo. Sometimes those can be hard to find even at the bookstore and things. So we try and add a lot of value, and those people all pay $100 a month. But if whatever your price point is, if you can do $7, you can do a donation and automatically set it for $7. If your budget is $3 a month, like you can become a donator and go to the donations page and do that. But I really recommend getting in at least at that $10 because you do get a lot of value as a fan for that $10 a month.
100% agree. And I appreciate you coming on. We need to do this more often to raise the profile because we need it more than ever now. And if you end up with extra gear, extra swag bags and stuff, send it to me because I'll or just drive it to my house because I'll just turn around and put it up on the wall. And, a Coup Connect shirt I will wear. If you have hats, I can do all that free merchandising for you on the show.
Dude, I wish my camera was, I don't know why my camera, it worked one of the times I was on your show. I don't know what it did.
Yeah, it did.
But if I could turn my camera around, I'll show you right now. I've got 7 large Rubbermaid totes just packed with gear. Packed with gear from all the gear we send people. I've got basketball jerseys coming out of my ears. I've got all kinds of stuff. So yeah, man, we'll have to one day connect and I'll just hand you a garbage bag full of all kinds of gear. So.
I can come to you too. Just send me a text and I can drive to wherever you're at also. So
yeah, man.
You don't have to come to me.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, Moen or Immaculate? I know that got a little granular, but for BYU fans, it's a big deal and Jake's doing a wonderful job. Go ahead, Immaculate.
I don't know how well you can answer this. And if you can't, no worries. I totally understand. But I'm just kind of curious, how much of your funding would you say comes from like these type of private donations from fans and just the small monthly ones versus large like corporate donations or whatnot?
Yeah. So we take money in basically two ways, right? We have subscribers, donations. Most people pay the $10 at least to subscribe. So we have close to 500 subscribers in there, and then we have some really awesome corporate sponsors. Pacific Horizon Credit Union, man, like those guys are rock solid. They're always promoting our stuff and sponsoring us. We've got some other good business too. I don't really want to. We have Chubby's Carrick Home Design, Miracle Bowl has been a great sponsor for a couple years for us now. Those people, but I would probably say between those two, Roll Up Crepes. I mean, I can keep going. I better not, because I'll forget. I'll forget the one person, and then that person will be upset. But yeah, probably I would say 75 to 80% of the money we get comes from the fans, whether they're donating 10, 40, or 100. And then probably, 20 to 25% comes from those corporate sponsors.
That's interesting. I would hazard a guess that most people would maybe have guessed the other way around, but that there's that much support from just individual folks. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think that I have a different approach to this, I think, than most collectives do. A lot of people like the mega boosters, the mega donors on there. But if you talk with some people around the Texas A&M community there, like there was some major donor fatigue, booster fatigue, or burnout, whatever you call it, when they put up, I don't know, millions and millions of dollars and weren't bowl eligible, right? Yeah. But if you're really adding some value and building a community and getting fans together with players, and you can probably stomach, if you have a losing season, you can probably stomach $10 a month. I don't know, if you have a losing season, can you really stomach $500,000? Can you really stomach? Is the wife going to be on board with you breaking remotes against the wall and you're out? I don't know. And this 501(c)(3) stuff looks like it could be in jeopardy as well, where you get those mega donors, their kickbacks that way in the tax break. So I don't know.
Tax write-off part of it.
Yeah, and that looks like it could be in serious jeopardy. And we hired an attorney early on to look at all that stuff. And their advice to us was, don't go that route. Do not go that route. The IRS is not going to play games with you guys. Like, they're going to put their foot down. And he was a very high-profile business attorney that kind of gave us some counsel there. So we've kind of always had a different approach than most people. I think it's a slower burn. But I was talking with a guy who has been with us since the beginning the other day, and he's like, man, I remember when you used to give us a couple $100 to come do events, or a couple $100 there, and now it's like it's thousands, and it makes a big difference. So it's a slower burn. It's not as sexy as someone dropping a bunch of money, but I think it's more sustainable, and I think it's more powerful in a lot of ways.
Glenn Lumen's one of our members. He's a member of the church, lives in Philippines. Jake, and he's asking a question here. Can I buy the jerseys in the Philippines? So let me say one thing, Glenn, and then I'll let Jake answer. The QR code up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen that I've had on all my shows for a long time. Take your cell phone, if you're on your computer, scan that. It'll pop up to the web page that goes right to KuConnect, and you can see all the options that are there. It's very transparent, easy to understand and read. But Jake, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, for sure, do it. If you're a fan, I mean, I have some fans who they just subscribe to support people, and that's fine. But I think that if you're a fan and you're not doing this, you're kind of missing out on an opportunity to really bolster BYU and BYU athletics. It makes a difference, guys. I promise it makes a difference. And then B is to get connected in this community and get connected to the players. I was talking to the owner of a business who's done some work with us, and he's like, I've never been more excited for a season to start than for this season, because I feel like I really know about 10 of the players. Like, I really know them. I've had multiple opportunities to interact with them. I've had them, I've eaten dinner with them one-on-one and things. And so it just gets him more excited, amplifies his whole level of fandom there. So yeah, for sure. I would, scan the QR code, go and check it out. And then to answer Glenn's question, they're being produced in a factory in the Philippines. Maybe on the street market, you might find some that were that were discards or something, but I bet not. It's just to get the players the $20 a jersey, which is 4 times higher than the next highest one I know about. NIL deal with jerseys that I know about, it's 4 times higher than that. Is we had to put in one massive order in the Philippines, manufacture hundreds of jerseys at once, have them shipped back here to Utah, and then manually do fulfillment in bags to do that, to save as much money as we could on those jerseys to get the players the most bang for their NIL buck as we could. So I really doubt you could find them there, but you just go to, basketball jerseys will be on sale in 4 or 5 weeks from now. So if you follow us on Instagram or Twitter, you'll see us posting about it, and you can go to our link there and you'll get noticed. Or if you're a subscriber, right, you'll get the email or you'll see the message in the DM group or the Discord and know when we've got jerseys for sale there. So that's the route I know works for you.
The DM group and Twitter is fantastic, Glenn. You want to get background information, you want to know what's going on at fall camp and stuff like that. It's worth the $10 just to get the newsletter from that. We knew a week ahead of time that Micah had hurt himself. Mason Wake, we knew about, 2 days? I think he put something out before it came out to the general public. So I've never put whatever I've read on the DM group, I've left it there, but there's really some good stuff there. And I recommend any BYU person, for that matter, anybody who likes information about other school stuff, pay the $10 and you can do some spying.
I know there's a few Utah fans in there because
right.
we were teasing about, they're paying $10 a month, man. I checked. I'd be ready to boot those Utah fans in a heartbeat if I didn't think they were paying $10 a month. But they heard that we had heard first about Utah joining the Big 12,
right?
And so they joined to see what that was all about. And they're still kicking around in one of those DM groups. But yeah, we knew that Utah had made a press release, and the Utah was ready to announce a few days after Colorado announced. So I know there's all this, it was the Big Ten that did this, that did that. Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State, just like Jason Scheer had reported, actually, very almost identical to what he said, had all basically made the backdoor decision, behind the scenes decision that, hey, yeah, we're going to join the Big 12. And we reported on it first. We had to control some of the fallout because the fan base wasn't too excited about it. But yeah, you really do get a lot of really good inside information first.
Very good. All right. Well, Jake, I really appreciate your time. You and I, again, we need to either get together for lunch or do some things and compare notes, because I think there's more stuff I could be doing and we could be doing together, especially when you're starting this new company. I know I can help you with some advertising and stuff there. So we'll have to do that to get back to Chubby's sometime soon. Yeah,
man. I'd love to.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you being here. We're going to go a couple more minutes and then sign off. So I appreciate you you're welcome to stick around if you want, but we're just going to go through some comments, some last notes, and then we'll probably close the show out in another 5-10 minutes. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good. Awesome. Well, you're welcome. Kyle Visser, thanks for your comment here. He says, Mike Smith, it was a good ad. He's talking about BYU to the Big 12. If you ever play them at your place, they scarf up tickets and very polite people. Additionally, they watch BYU in every state. If you don't buy your away tickets at your home games, BYU will turn your stands blue and white. I promise you it will happen. That's why TCU has locked out BYU from buying single tickets at the TCU home games. That's how afraid they are that they lose part of their stadium to BYU fans.
ASU should be worried about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because Tempe is not that far from Gilbert and Chandler and that area down there. So
yeah, BYU travels to Arizona, and it's always a BYU semi-home game. Absolutely. Moen, give your feedback from an Ohio State perspective. How you've always looked at BYU. I think your opinion really, for me, has been one of the ideal ones that I think I wish other people could express.
I think BYU is a national football brand. It's, just like Notre Dame's a national football brand, because they were forced to go out and try and cobble together these schedules with teams all across the country. So, I mean, I'm not going to say BYU's been as successful as Notre Dame, But, have a national championship. They have Steve Young. They have Jim McMahon. They've got a couple guys who won some rings in the NFL. You can't count that out.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mo. And I follow up with this comment from Glenn again. Hey, Glenn, if you tell me what size of shirt you are, I'll get with Jake. I have to send you a rally towel anyway. I'll see if I can maybe get something worked out that if you're willing to pay full price for the jersey, if he has an extra, I'll get it from him and I'll ship it to you. So we can work something like that out. Jake's here. He's still with us, and he heard that. So, Jake, if you come across an extra jersey somebody walked away from, let me know. What size are you, Glenn? Just put it in the comments or send me a DM, and we'll talk about sending that out to you.
Yeah, we'll hook him up. No worries, man.
He's more wise than you and I are combined. Jake, just so you know, he's a great fan of BYU, and he's a great proselytizer there in the Philippines. Let's see here if there's any other comments. Moen or Immaculate, is there anything else you want to talk about? We didn't get to Stanford. I guess we could close out with Stanford. Do you guys think Stanford and Cal make it to the Big Ten?
Do they make it anywhere? It's supposedly, according to Wilner, we're going to find out in the next 24 hours. That was 12 and a half hours or so ago. He made that about Stanford and the ACC. I still don't see how that happens. I cannot see the ACC choosing to add Stanford and California just to placate Notre Dame, because it does not add enough athletic value to have your teams flying all the way across the country. Any additional revenue you make from that, you're spending on travel.
Right.
It's just, we've got a saying here in Ohio. I'm sure you've got it elsewhere. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I would say I don't understand it. I don't understand why it's still being talked about. We know why certain schools are voting no on them. We know they want to go to the SEC or the Big Ten. We know the difference in money that is involved with that. So in order for them, in my mind, for them to actually change their opinions on their votes, you would have to somehow offer them an equivalent amount of money. And when you take that number and you start going by year, it's an insane amount of money. I don't see, there's no way to buy their votes. So what else do you give them to get them to go for it? I don't see it. I think that is a divide in the conference that is going to last. And I hope Stanford and them are looking somewhere else, because I don't think it works.
What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, geographically, a lot of the things thrown out there don't make sense. Financially, a lot of the things thrown out there don't make sense. I think it'd be really odd to join the American. You're with Sacramento State. That's your local. It just doesn't make sense, guys. I think they're going to have to take a significant pay cut, or just maybe go the Notre Dame route with the ACC and have a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten or something like that. But I don't know. And then independence is no cakewalk. A lot of people are oh, they'll just go independent. It's guys, the first few years, those schedules of independence were just terrible. Recruiting, they're already having recruiting issues, right, with the turnover of coaching staff and things it's tough any way you slice it, man. I don't know what they're going to do. I think they're in a really precarious situation.
I like the idea of them just going off and disappearing into some bureaucracy at the ACC or at the Big Ten, and you never hear from them again. They disappear. Both schools cease to exist in the competitive environment, because Cal maybe a little with NIL, but actually Stanford is out of the NIL game. They're saying their education trumps any tens of thousands of dollars you might get in an NIL deal, and they're going to stick to that. So I think both schools go into one of the two conferences, and you never hear about them again. It's going to be sad, actually, because their ego and pride is what is getting them there.
How much is this Cal debt on this stadium? It's something like $50 million, right? It's in that neighborhood.
I thought there was another digit added to it.
I thought it was 100 something.
Oh my gosh, geez!
Yeah.
And then now you've got no revenue from these TV deals. You're going to get a mountain, slightly elevated Mountain West. I just don't know what else you can do. I mean, it's a really just terrible situation to be in. I don't know.
What I'm looking forward to is BYU
Well,
getting
you
all
want
those
some,
Stanford recruits.
I got some breaking. I got some
Go.
news on the Stanford thing.
Go.
Stanford has told Oregon State, Washington State, and California that they will accept reduced shares or absolutely no media payouts to join the ACC.
Okay.
And that's being reported by the Associated Press, Ralph D. Russo.
So they're saying to stay out of the playing with the children, the Mountain West and the AAC, to stay out of all that purgatory, they're willing to walk away from money for who knows how long to join the ACC conference and all that travel.
Yeah.
I dare say we have our answer on whether Stanford is willing to give up the IPLC.
That is just insane.
That is a no. It's that big of a deal. People didn't realize it's that big of a deal. It is. And they're willing to do this rather than give up the IPLC to join the BTAA. It's that big of a deal.
Explain to everybody what that is really quick, Immaculate. Give me a Cliff Note version.
These are libraries. These are research libraries. These isn't libraries where you go and check out a book. This is where all of the information gets shared and stored between these various universities that are part of it. The IPLC is called the Ivy Plus Libraries Confederation, and it's got all the Ivies. It's got MIT, has Johns Hopkins, has University of Chicago, it has Duke, and it has Stanford, and they all share their research information through this library. The BTA is the Big Ten's version of that, where they share all that, plus other things like they share intern positions. So Stanford probably doesn't want to give up some of their tech connections. There's some other things they do, logistics sharing in terms of purchasing. So it's a big deal, and it's way bigger money than athletic money. So
and that brings me to my follow-up question I was going to ask is you're not able to just take this endowment money. You're not able to take this money that's earmarked and pay your football coach or pay for flights. How do you survive? It's just donors at that point, right? Just got to be donors.
People bring up those because it's kind of a showcase of how much donation power they have. If they really wanted to reach out and reach hard, we need these big donors now, how much they could possibly pull together. But yeah, they can't just reach into those endowments to use it. Those are all trust funds that are set up to pay out every so much a year for a certain scholarship or whatever, or equipment for sports teams.
If they do this, and because and the only reason I can assume they would this still doesn't make sense, because as we know about the facts, it doesn't make sense.
So
I'll bring that up. The reason it doesn't make sense is if they add 2 more voting members, or let's just even say it's Stanford, they bring in Stanford. It changes the dynamics of the voting structure within the ACC, and it makes it just that much harder for Florida State, Clemson, and et al. To get out. I don't think this happens.
Well, not only that, even if they don't accept payment, those other schools have to cover those travel costs.
Well, it's not about the money.
San Francisco.
At this point, it's not about the money. I don't think it's about the money.
But
I think
for the other ACC members, it is.
Sure. But
now
for Stanford, it's not about
money
the money.
To fly out to Stanford. Right. For them, it's not.
I
understand.
Schools,
it definitely is.
I just don't. Why would Florida State vote against its own interest? I don't think.
I think they're going to have to make them a deal. They're going to have to make the no votes a deal. I don't know
in what way. What could they trade?
No, I mean, okay, we realize you guys want to leave and you're going to hold up. They want Stanford to replace these schools. They know they're probably going to find a way out sooner or later, pay the money, whatever it's going to be. So right now is the time to get Stanford, though, because Stanford can't wait till next year or the year after. So they're going to maybe be forced into making some kind of deal to let these schools out if they cannot get the vote. And like I said, once they do that, this really starts to push the ACC towards almost entirely a private university conference. When you start to see some of these the public schools, the big state schools leaving.
So here's the article. I was able to get this. Let me close this little
I
ad
haven't
here.
even seen this on Twitter at all by anybody yet.
As Stanford holds out hope for ACC invitation, Oregon State and Washington State wait on the Cardinal, as everybody has for a while. So we're breaking news here, guys. The APP is reporting it, but today on our show, right this second, get out on Twitter, and you can be the first ones to report this to everybody that follows you. And I'm expecting Moen, you've already put this out there, right?
Yeah, I'll tweet it out as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. I'm not going to
It's
have time
really
to do it,
just-
so.
Just put it up and
Just
I'll
the first-
retweet you. But
Yeah, it's just the first couple of lines there.
I think it's amazing because it really means that they're willing to do anything to not slum it with these other schools. They just will not abase themselves to anybody that they don't feel is their peer. That's incredible. Stanford has not given up getting an invitation to the Atlantic Coast Conference, as it is a fellow Pac-4 members in the Pacific Northwest help to rebuild their plundered league and wait to find out if the Cardinal are in. If they do leave, what happens to the other three if Cal doesn't end up going? They have to do something, right? Because
they'll
Cal's
bring
not going to the
Cal.
Big 12.
I think the whole point of this is Stanford's saying we won't take anything, so that like if we're going to get half pay from the ACC, our half can go to Cal or something like that. They're going to want Cal with them. They're not going alone that far.
I don't know.
all by
We're gonna
themselves.
have to dial into that. It's gonna take more time than we've got. All right, everybody. What a great show we've had. I really appreciate everybody being here tonight. 87 people. If you're new to the show, please subscribe, give us a follow. Definitely thank you for being here and all the comments that we've had tonight. And definitely John Kurtz, I want to thank him. Jake, thanks for being here tonight. And everybody, if you're new to the show, please follow these guys on Twitter. Jake he's the executive director of the Coug Connect NIL for BYU. Definitely find him on Twitter at Coug Connect. And then Moen and Immaculate, obviously key contributors to this show. And then they're going to start doing some of their own stuff in the near future. So you guys have anything else you want to leave with before we close this sucker out?
I think right now we got some work ahead of us to see where the Stanford thing's going. Hopefully here in our next show, we'll have a lot more to share on that, and look forward to seeing how that goes. Thanks again, though.
Tomorrow night, sorry to interrupt you. I forgot this, Immaculate. Tomorrow night, I have MH Ver. MH Ver 3 is going to be on my show tomorrow afternoon, 5 p.m. Eastern. That's 3 p.m. Mountain. And if anybody wants to talk conspiracy theories, MH Verb was the guy leading the pack over a year ago. He and Greg Flugar were the first guys to report the USC, UCLA stuff. People disparaged MH Verb for an entire year. I got to know the guy via Twitter. We started trading messages, and when it circled back and every one of his reports pretty much started to ring true, including the ones that didn't come true, the Gonzagas, the UConns, the San Diego States, all that stuff he was reporting, he was being told by valuable members of the athletic departments and administration of these schools. So he'll be on the show tomorrow night. I invite you to be there. Moen and Immaculate, of course, you guys are invited. Other than that, Moen, do you have any last words you want to say?
Yeah, Tuesday. We're going to have the Notre Dame guy on Tuesday.
Right.
What
In
time
fact,
is that? Immaculate?
Yeah, let me get that time. Thank you for reminding me.
I think you were saying 7 Eastern on that one.
Yeah, I think that's at 7 Eastern on Tuesday. Yep, that is the Four Horsemen podcast. That's Notre Dame. And if you know anything about our shows, we know that Notre Dame is not so beloved around here. But it'll
That's
be
the
entertaining because no one will be in the house, and we'll be very respectful. Good conversations, and we just want to learn. Listen and learn. Right, Moen? You're going to be nice.
I'll be as
No,
nice as
no
I can.
promises.
Look, he's open for a little fun, but yeah, I mean, we're in the end, it's
We'll
all
be
friendly.
respectful. We can
Okay,
disagree
there we
and
go.
not, and
I
not be
appreciate it.
disagreeable.
You know, and just one
All
thing I have
right.
to say about MHVR, what happened a year ago and whatnot. That guy's actually been at this for about a decade or more. I don't know if people
Oh, yeah,
realize.
for sure.
I mean, realignment's been going on for a while, and he's been a name in that. That's why it's kind of been funny for me to sit back because I'm very well familiar with the name and with him, to see everyone talking about him in like just in the last year or two part. And it's like, well, this guy's been around for a while, so
I remember him from 2016 when we were maybe possibly come into the Big 12 back then. And I
Right.
remember him in, was it 2011 or 2012? And the same thing around then too. So
Yeah, he really picked up big when they were leaving the Big East.
Yeah, when the Big East thing blew up, he popped up with some alerts. And actually, I hate to admit this, but it was on Cougar Board, which at the time was really the only social media that really centered on BYU stuff. Now Cougar Board is cancer. And if you're a BYU fan and you listen to Cougar Board, there's something wrong with you. You need to peel away as quickly as possible. Cougar Board's run by Utes at this point. So anything you're getting there is disinformation. But that's where he first popped up for me, was it on a radio show. I think it was 960 AM in Provo. And then he was on Cougar Board. So he's been around a long time. I've been waiting for this interview. He was right after Bob Thompson for my most sought after interview. John Kurtz, by the way, was third. So I'm starting to knock all these down. It's pretty cool. If there's nothing else, guys, I really appreciate, again, everybody being here. Please subscribe, turn on those notifications, hit that little bell, and leave us a comment or question. And we read those, and we try to do shows around those things. We try to answer those questions if they're insightful and not rude. Other than that, everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble, and we will talk to you later. Peace.
Good night, folks.